All right, we'll go ahead and get started. Thank you everybody for joining. Happy to be here today. We know taking an hour out of your day is a big time commitment, so we appreciate everybody for coming. And today we are joined by Tony from 8x8, along with Kyle Hall, President of Resourcive, and Jeff Moss, our enterprise consultant who focuses on contact center as a service. So today we are talking about AI in the contact center. That is a hot topic, as everybody I'm sure knows who's joined us, and we're really looking forward to diving deep into the ways that we see it being implemented and driving value for our clients. So without further ado, I will hand it over to Kyle Hall.
Excellent, Josh. Thank you. And again, thanks to all the attendees. We'll go ahead and dive right in. We're excited for this topic. And clearly based on y'all's participation, you are as well. So a quick just intro and kind of overview to who Resourcive is and what we do. Fundamentally at our base level, we're a value creation partner for our clients. We focus in the mid-market and enterprise, and specifically we focus on sourcing of technology and implementation of it to drive ROI in their business. As Josh mentioned, I'm the president of Resourcive. In that capacity, I work both with our business development teams as well as our consulting teams, really to partner with our clients and see their strategies come to fruition through the sourcing of technology. So Jeff, you want to give a quick intro and then we'll actually get into the agenda?
Yeah, you bet. Thanks, Kyle. Again, my name is Jeff Moss, one of the enterprise consultants with Resourcive, based out of Austin, Texas. I am also a contact center enthusiast. Excited about part 2 of our series today. Looking forward to partnering with our friends at 8x8. With that, Kyle, I'll let you kick us off.
Yeah, thanks, Jeff. All right, so already kind of hit the welcome. We're going to touch on CCaaS in general and kind of walk in specifically to the topic of today, which is artificial intelligence and the ways that it is being utilized in the contact center. We'll then turn it over to Tony, who's going to focus specifically on how 8x8 is doing that. So obviously a lot of vendors in the space. 8x8 has some pretty unique ways in which they've integrated AI, and has some specific use cases and also some case studies of what they've been able to do for some of their clients using this. We do have a couple of other upcoming webinars over the next couple months. And in general, we're kind of taking a focus on diving into some of the features here because we believe that's where some of the ROI can actually be created, right? The base level of just being able to make, receive, queue calls, do some reporting. That's kind of table stakes at this point in the contact center. And so a lot of these features and functionality is where some of the differentiation is created. So we focused on CRM integration on our past one. We're talking AI today. In our next one, we'll be talking about Microsoft Teams and how that plays into the contact center, and then going into voice biometrics, which is another emerging area. So excited to be doing that. And I guess final bullet point on the agenda, Josh will come back on and kind of handle the kind of raffle and all of that sort of stuff. So I guess we'll get into it. So first, before we go into the specific technology around AI, let's just talk a little bit about why contact center. I'm getting a little bit of a lag here. Give me just a moment. There we go. And why we should pay attention. I mean, Resourcive consults across a lot of different technology pillars. Contact center is one of our focus areas, and primarily we're focusing there because we believe and have seen it demonstrated in our clients that this is an area that can really hit 2 levers, right? You can drive efficiency, so bottom line improvement through reduced call times, possibly serving higher call volumes without the need to expand your headcount in the contact center. But also you can dramatically improve customer experience, which is top line growth, right? Trying to affect your customer lifetime value, either through retention or cross-selling and upselling of your customer base. As far as why contact center as a service, specifically when we talk about CCaaS, what we are referring to is generally an OpEx-based model, inclusive of all of the components to deliver contact center. And this is as opposed to delivering a contact center that is on premise, which is kind of a legacy model that absolutely still exists out in the market today. And part of the problem or part of the reason that has stayed around is these are big projects, and you need to put a lot of time and diligence and focus into actually cutting over and seeing the vision come to reality for these types of technology. When we talk about market trends, specifically AI and analytics right now, I hesitate to call it an arms race, but I mean, this is a focus area for all of the largest contact center vendors that are out there. And there's a couple different ways that they go about it. Some of them choose to partner, some of them choose to build in-house, some of them choose to acquire emerging technology and try to integrate into their platform. But ultimately, what it's enabling from the buyer side, so from the companies that we work with, it's enabling them to partake in a development cycle that is unsustainable for them to do themselves in an on-premise type of deployment. So really the rate of change here in these contact center providers and the features and functionalities that they're rolling out, has increased and is continuing to do so. And Jeff will get into some of the specifics on that here in a few moments. A couple of focus areas and kind of things that you'll hear from us throughout this, down to the third bullet point here, one of the immediate things it enables from an artificial intelligence perspective is in-depth and responsive analytics. So, historically, you may have to use, either middleware, something like a call miner type tool, but go in and do this data mining on your call recordings and on, what you're hearing from customers. Maybe you have to do customer surveys, that type of thing. Artificial intelligence, fundamentally, like our position isn't that it replaces humans, but that it augments them, that it scales them. And so, you can get support in listening to all call recordings, and that's from both sides, from the agent side as well as from the consumer or caller side. And finally, we see it as a potential for very high ROI. So self-service becoming a reality. There has been talk about self-service for multiple years now in the contact center, but fundamentally everyone on the call here is consumers as well, right? And I think we've probably all experienced poor implementations or poor customer service from things like chatbots or things like speech, essentially IVR with speech recognition, where you're trying to talk to an IVR and it's just not getting you, right? And it keeps giving the same response because there's not a level of intelligence in those historically, right? It's kind of a stagnant type of database that is being referenced against. And so that change is here, and the rate of change that is happening there continues to grow. So we'll be focused on the impact and value of AI today. And our goal ultimately is to provide information on how to evaluate vendors and assess the value in your own environment. So with that, Jeff, I'll turn it over to you and let you get into some of the details here on AI.
Yeah, perfect. Thanks, Kyle. So again, to Kyle's point, when you talk about AI and analytics, it's almost like a PB&J sandwich. It just makes sense, right? What I'm going to do these first couple of minutes is I'm going to decouple AI from analytics. And then at the end of it, I'm going to tie it all together. So let's just start off by talking about this buzzword, AI, or artificial intelligence. Let's start off by talking about what it is. Kyle's already touched on this a little bit. It augments the human mind to make us bigger, faster, stronger. It leverages computers and machines to mimic the problem-solving and decision-making capabilities of the human mind. What is it made up of? It's made up of really 4 components. Natural language processing, giving computers and machines the ability to understand text and spoken words in the same way humans do today. It's also referred to as NLP. The best example of that is, hey Siri, please set alarm for 7 a.m. That's AI. That's natural language processing. I use it every single day. It's become a part of my daily routine. Knowledge repository. Think of it as a database of information that can be tapped into. Think of it as Wikipedia at your fingertips. It systematically captures, organizes, and categorizes knowledge-based information so that agents can be smarter when they're interacting with the customer. A good example of that, and Tony's going to get into this in a couple of minutes. In contact center, we talk about this idea of a knowledge base or data dip. That would be an example of it. But in the real world, every day, I can't think of a better example than Google search. Google has become a verb. We now say, hey, what's the answer to that question? Or you're looking for a particular piece of information. What do? We Google it. It's a lexicon. It's part of our daily habit. We use it, I don't know how many times a day. But Google search is an example of knowledge repository. Automated reasoning. It's that area of computer science where you're concerned with applying reasoning in the form of logic to computer systems. There's been a lot of buzz and a lot of talk about ChatGPT. That might be a good example of automated reasoning. Using AI to do what humans would typically do, what might take hours. Things like ChatGPT, those tools can do it in seconds, milliseconds in some cases. And then finally, what is AI? It's machine learning. It's the technique that allows computers to learn from each and every experience or interaction. Great example of that, Amazon recommendations. I can't tell you how many times I'm sitting at the house having a conversation with my wife. We all make the joke that Alexa's always listening. What happens the next time I log into Amazon? Sure enough, that product or service that we were talking about maybe buying one of these days is at the top of my Amazon search filter. And in some cases, it's already in the cart. So that's an example of machine learning. So high level, that's what AI is. It's these four things that make up the overarching topic. It's natural language processing, it's knowledge repository or a knowledge base, it's automated reasoning, and it's machine learning. Lots of different examples, but just wanted to highlight a couple that affect us each and every day.
Cool. And hey, Jeff, while you're transitioning, I do want to call out, we do have a question in here, and obviously Q&A is open. I did mark that one. I'll circle back around to that at the end where we have Q&A, but happy to expand on kind of where some of the differences are, in these platforms and in these providers.
Yeah, thanks, Kyle. So now that we've talked a little bit about what AI is, let's talk about AI in the contact center. Numerous applications. Some of the things that Tony with 8x8 is going to get into here in a few minutes. But if you look at all of these examples on this colorful wheel, let's talk about the front end, or what we call the digital doorstep, digital self-service. Kyle's already alluded to the fact that self-service is king in the contact center. What does that mean? It means I no longer want to call a toll-free number and sit on hold for 15, 20, 30 minutes waiting for the next available agent. As a consumer, as a customer, we want to be able to go out, hit the company website, try to answer our own questions, and it's probably not going to be between 8 and 5. We all work for a living. If you all pulled up your Amazon account and looked at your last purchase, probably was after hours or on the weekend. So the digital self-service, what we call omni-channel and contact center, perfect example or application of AI. If I hit the company website, I'll usually go to the bottom right-hand corner and I'll look for a chat bot. I'll now start trying to do some self-service through a chat bot. I found the location of the business I want to go to tomorrow. I want to check the hours. What are the hours on Monday and Fridays? Chatbot, another example of digital self-service. As we look through this, let's say I can't answer my own question through self-service, and I'm actually going to pick up the phone and call into that company I do business with. How does AI play into this? Voice recognition. Instead of typing in my information with things like intelligent IVR that Kyle alluded to, I now can speak in my information. Jeff Moss, maybe give my account number, maybe give the name of my company so that when I do get a hold of a live agent, they're not going to turn around and ask me those same questions because of things like voice recognition. All of these experiences, all of this technology is driven by AI. So I get on the phone with an agent. How does that agent become more productive? We talk about bringing in all of this contextual information with things like screen pop, click to call, some of the features that Tony's going to talk about here in a few minutes. AI proceeds to follow me through my customer journey so that when I get on the phone with an agent, they're going to greet me with a personalized service. Hey, Jeff, thanks for calling in today. By chance, are you calling in about that order you placed last week for running shoes? Well, yes, I am. I thought they'd be here by now. I wanted to check on the status. That agent could provide the answer to that question with personalized service, but the agent can also turn this interaction into a cross-sell upsell that Kyle alluded to and say, hey, by the way, yes, we sell running shoes. Here's the status of that order. You know, we sell socks, shorts, workout gear to go along with those running shoes. Cross-sell, upsell. Post-interaction, how does AI play into it? Think of a supervisor that wants to go through and look for things like interactions that are mostly positive, mostly negative. So sentiment analysis down here on this bottom. Drill down into the interactions that are mostly negative. Maybe that agent needs help with objection handling. Or maybe the interaction was very positive. That agent's been looking to get promoted up into a supervisor. Supervisors can use AI through features like sentiment analysis to help coach their agents up and advocate for things like promotions. So just a couple of examples, lots of different applications. These are just a couple of examples of where AI plays into the contact center. So now let's take AI and analytics and marry them together and put a bow on this thing. How does analytics play into AI? What is it? AI is the driving force behind any effective data analytical strategy. It makes us more efficient. At the end of the day, what AI does is it makes data digestible or consumable. Keywords and phrases, taking thousands of interactions and letting the supervisor very quickly drill down into interactions where the keyword might be cancel service. Things that contact center stakeholders care about. Deeper level of reporting and visibility that's unprecedented. That's exactly what I'm talking about. Giving contact center stakeholders visibility into their environment so that contact center stakeholders can understand what customers and or prospects are saying about their brand, the products and services they bring to market, the pricing, and the overall experience that that brand's delivering. And then finally, what is it? Here on this left-hand side, it's every word can be heard, both on the agent side and the customer side. We've been able to do things like call recording for a long time, but picture a world where a supervisor not only has the recording of both sides of that interaction, but they've got a full transcription where they can very quickly search for keywords like cancel service. And where did that happen during that interaction? How did the agent handle that objection? And how do we lock down our existing customer base? Everybody knows it's more expensive to go out there and earn a new customer than keep an existing customer. So that insight is unprecedented and absolutely what companies need today. It should be considered table stakes in my opinion. So how does it impact? Who does it impact? I've already talked about a couple of these. CMOs and CROs have increased visibility into the customer buying habits. Good example, there's a boot company here in Texas. When they first came to market several years ago, they were the hot brand. Everybody wanted a pair of these cowboy boots. Sales were flying through the roof. The sales graph looked like a hockey stick. There came a point in that customer's journey or the company's journey that sales were flat. And the sales leaders were all looking around going, what happened? What happened to sales? Well, they implemented a contact center strategy that involved analytics with AI And what they very quickly understood was when you talk about buying habits in the customers were asking for a square-toed boot. This company did not offer a square-toed boot. The CRO went back to product and said, hey, we need to get a square-toed boot on the shelves ASAP. They developed a line of square-toed boots. To this day, this particular brand, the cowboy boot, the square-toed boot is their #1 seller still today. What is the point of my story? Sales leaders needed increased visibility into customer buying habits. If you don't offer the right product at the right price, at the right place, customers have a lot of options. They're going to go somewhere else to buy that service or that product. Who else does it impact? I've kind of alluded to this, but let's talk about it. Supervisors. With analytics, with AI, supervisors have increased ability to do what we call performance management. Why is that important today? Because during the pandemic, and even pre-pandemic, but specifically with the pandemic over the last couple of years, contact centers aren't that big cold gray building with lots of rows of agents where supervisors can walk up and down and look over their shoulder to hear and see what's going on in the contact center environment. Contact center agents are work from home. So how do supervisors manage this remote workforce? They do it through analytics and AI. What's not called out on this slide is things like screen recording, where you can watch literally what the agent is doing during an interaction. And if it's a positive interaction, you want to take that best practices and spread it across the rest of the environment. So things like screen recording. How does it impact the agents? Agents get to spend more time plugged into the interaction. On this next slide, or on the last slide, we talked about things like automation, automated workflow, pulling all of that contextual information into the single pane of glass so the agent is set up for success. The agent has everything they need to focus on the customer interaction instead of doing that alt tab and trying to pull together the information to try to figure out why they're on the phone with this particular customer. So contact center stakeholders, supervisors, agents, and then the last one here, training and onboarding time has decreased significantly. You can use things like built-in evaluations. You can use built-in evaluations to coach up your agents that need help. You can take the transactions that are mostly positive, use those in your training courses to very quickly onboard agents and get them out in front of your customers to provide a better customer experience. So who's impacted? I would say everyone. The company, the customer, the agent, the supervisor, everybody out there in the world today benefits from analytics with AI.
Cool. Thanks, Jeff. And we're gonna turn over here in just a second. I mean, look, this is a crowded space, and this goes to the question that actually we got in there, and which I'll come back to at the end. Right, there's a lot of players in this market on both kind of the generally left hand side here around CCaaS providers and the right hand side here on artificial intelligence companies. Obviously the left-hand side, these are generally a lot larger companies, right? AI is a newer technology. Many people here are probably familiar with Observe AI, and Tony's going to end up talking quite a bit about their partnership with them. But they are the makers of Chat GPT. There are a lot of strategies out here to do it. Tony, I guess I'm going to go ahead and turn over to you. I mean, today we are going to, we're really going to be focused on you guys and y'all's, and I guess I should say, I misspoke a second ago. I said Observe AI, I should have said Open AI. But y'all's approach to this, and it's worth saying, like, this is a pretty dynamic place right now. And I think that'll probably be part of Tony's messaging. I mean, these companies are continuing to push the boundaries, and the rate of change that we are seeing here is pretty drastic. So Tony, I'll turn it over to you, and I guess you can get into it.
Yeah, thank you, sir. Hey everybody, my name's Tony Poor. I'm the contact center program manager here at 8x8. I've been here for about 5 years, and my role is to help our partners and our customers understand all the capabilities of our technology when it comes to contact center, when it comes to AI, and so on and so forth. And the single most common question I get is, hey, what are you guys doing with AI? And that's a fair question, right? I mean, it's all anybody's talking about at pretty much every single conference, every event, webinars, just like this one. It's a hot topic, but it's kind of a flawed question. It's sort of like asking, hey, what are you guys doing with the internet? Because the answer is everything. AI is not some new product or feature that we're releasing. You don't just go buy it off the shelf like it's a gallon of milk. AI and machine learning are a core part of our entire platform. It's part of every single thing that we do. But with that being said, yeah, there's some really cool things that we've been able to unlock recently that really showcase what we can do from an AI standpoint. Of course, if you know us at all, you probably know us first as a unified communications company. We've been providing business telephony for about 20 years now. We've been leaders in the Gartner quadrant for about 11 years in a row. It's longer than anybody else. We also happen to have a really excellent contact center product that's been recognized by Gartner 8 years in a row. And what makes us even more unique is the idea that we combine both UC and contact center as a service on the same platform. We call this single platform approach XCaaS, or Experience Communications as a Service. And having a single platform is one of the main reasons that customers choose 8x8. It results in lower licensing costs, lower IT costs, easier implementation and customization, streamlined employee experience. And then when you go and apply things like AI, you're applying it not just to the contact center, not just to the UC side, but to the entire platform. But our industry is also at kind of a crossroads, right? The massive adoption of Microsoft Teams, which some of you are probably quite familiar with, it's disrupted the way that we utilize chat, video, and then to a lesser extent, voice. Now, some of the players in our space have decided to compete with Microsoft head on. That is not our game plan. I don't think that that's a particularly wise approach. We've elected to change course compared to some of those other vendors, and our approach has been to partner with Microsoft and augment the Teams experience by providing features that aren't necessarily native to their platform, things like call recording, auto attendance, voicemail, and so on. We've been really, really successful in that regard. Our Teams integration gets chosen about 4 times more often than our competition. And that same mindset, right? The idea that we're going to collaborate instead of compete. That same mindset really applies to our approach with AI and machine learning. We're actually moving away from the pack in a pretty significant way. So this is how we view the landscape. On the left-hand side, you've got the hyperscalers, Amazon, Google, Microsoft. These are the platforms, the data sets, the tooling infrastructure layer on which all these companies are building machine learning and AI solutions. They provide the core of what's being used. And who's it being used by? Well, all these companies on the right. That's not even a complete list. That's just some of the top ones. That's your applied AI companies. Now, over the last couple of years, the global venture capital community has funded over 1,000 startups around the contact center space. And our best estimates, it assumes that there's about $100 billion in venture capital R&D funding that's flowed into that group. And they use the hyperscaler infrastructure to offer some pretty cool solutions in our space. Things like conversational AI, agent assistance, customer health scoring, sentiment analysis, revenue enhancement, so on and so on, virtual agents, things like that. So you might be quick to think that these innovators are our competition in the AI space. But those innovators need a core platform that handles things like interaction routing, omni-channel routing, agent management, so on. So instead of competing, our AI strategy is to partner with these companies and build out a world-class customer experience platform. How are we going to do that? Well, we've actually built a modern microservices-based platform. It's on the front end and the back end, and it powers both our communications and our contact center solutions. So we're going to focus on all the intelligent routing, the omni-channel user experience, having a great UI, having data analytics, everything you need to run a contact center. But then we want to enable the use of these best-in-breed ecosystem partners, right? Those machine learning and AI solutions. This ultimately allows you to offer a really highly personalized experience to your customers, which is what they want in the end. And this is not a new way of thinking, right? This is relatively new to the contact center. So think about software companies like Salesforce.com, right? Or Marketo. I don't know how many thousand different plugins they've got. I know Marketo has over 5,000 alone. I'm willing to bet that a lot of you on this webinar today use Salesforce as an example, but you probably each have different experiences with it based on the way you've configured the tool and the different plugins you use. And that's kind of the mindset we want to have with 8x8. Our focus is to be world-class with interaction routing in omnichannel, have the best UI, the best data and analytics suite, and then partner with these companies so that we can have the best possible solution for our customers. So as I mentioned, we're building this amazing ecosystem of AI partners, and that allows us to focus on some very specific and a very expensive problem that a lot of you are probably dealing with, and that's contact center labor costs. It is the biggest single cost in any contact center, and it's amplified by things like agent turnover. So think about how expensive it is for one of your agents to handle a basic task, something like looking up an account balance, maybe resetting a password, getting an RMA number, something like that. All of these things can be fully automated, which is what customers want. They want 24/7 self-service, which AI is perfect for. And we have the tools in place to let you do that today. And you can let your people focus on the more complex tasks. And those complex tasks, they're generally more valuable, right? And that should be the goal. Have your most expensive resources handling your most valuable transaction. And let a less expensive resource, in this case, AI and bots, handle the low-hanging fruit. So let's talk about self-service a little bit. The ability for a customer to resolve their needs without having to have human assistance. There's been a shift in consumer preferences, and the more time a business can give back to their customers through things like, lower wait times, faster resolution, lower effort, those customers are a lot more loyal. In fact, they're about 89% more loyal. So if you give me time back personally, that's a great way to improve satisfaction and build brand loyalty. There aren't a whole lot of ways to do that, to streamline the process without using automation. And for me, I don't really care if it's a bot or a live person. If I've got a basic problem, most consumers don't, especially when their issue gets resolved quickly and correctly. Even more so if I can do it on my schedule, any time of day, through whatever media option that I choose. But some of you probably have had the same experiences I've had. Sometimes there's crappy experiences with self-service, and that historically has painted maybe a darker picture than it should. It might make some of us skeptical for using self-service. But remember, legacy self-service was super, super limited, right? It was a rules-based automation engine with pre-canned responses. And if you had a need that fell out of the basic model, the whole thing had this tendency to fall apart. But it was an emerging technology. So you can't really compare today's self-services and the capabilities any more than you would compare those first portable brick cell phones to the iPhone 14 Pro that you've got in your pocket today. Conversational AI, that is a massive, massive leap forward. It gives AI the ability to understand and process natural language, to understand context and sentiment, to generate a natural response. In other words, it simulates an actual human conversation. And that's the goal of every bot designer that's out there. Make this interaction as natural as possible. So I'm happy to share with you guys today, 8x8 has released a product. It's our conversational AI product called Intelligent Customer Assistant. It uses conversational AI to manage self-service interactions. It's easy to deploy, easy to use, easy to report on. We're actually going to show you a quick video here that we put together that illustrates exactly how powerful this guy can be. Josh, I think if you can hit play for us, that'll speed this up.
Yep.
I'll let you take control for a moment so I don't ruin it.
What makes a great chatbot? Simple. A chatbot that doesn't feel like a chatbot. With personalized conversations, intuitive responses, and fast resolutions, customers can engage in natural, familiar dialogue that delivers effective support. They'll hardly know they're talking to a chatbot. Introducing 8x8 Intelligent Customer Assistant, a conversational AI solution delivering smart self-service to handle customer requests. With 8x8 Intelligent Customer Assistant, you can create engaging, trusted experiences across every channel. Design and manage dynamic self-service flows with simple click and add scripting functions or pre-built templates. Easily connect with existing systems and deploy rapidly through turnkey integrations. Plus, tap into comprehensive analytics to get rich insights into your bot's performance. Keep wait times short, agents engaged, and customers happy with 8x8 Intelligent Customer Assistant.
Thank you, sir.
There you go.
Thank you very much. So there's a lot to love about this application, right? First and foremost, ICA customers can build or adjust their conversation flows with clicks, with drag and drop, without having to build code, right? This is a huge shift from the traditional programming approach. This is a no-code environment. Not only that, but the conversation flows can be built once, and then you can apply it to any channel, in any of the over 100 languages that we support. And customers can move seamlessly from a bot to a human with a short summary or the full context of the interaction that gets presented to live agents. But automating the experience is only half of it. If you can't measure it, you can't manage it. and we're delivering a comprehensive set of analytics on these interactions directly into our supervisor workspace. So ICA can surface customer friction points or points of failure in the conversation, and they can provide suggestions on how to improve that pain point. So not only are we telling you exactly what happened, but we're also telling you, how can we improve this thing for next time? And it's important to point out that what we're talking about today is not some future roadmap item that's going to get delivered in Q4, right? This isn't vaporware. It's already here. We've deployed ICA with quite a few of our existing customers. One of them, Acer, they're one of the world's largest PC vendors. They deployed it a few months ago, initially just to handle password resets, which is a high volume, low complexity task, the kind of thing that AI is the perfect vehicle for. And the team at Acer, they're going to tell you that our offering is robust, it's easy to use, it seamlessly passes customer data from bot to a live person with all of the relevant context whenever that's needed. And this is exactly what you want out of a self-service engine. So we're bringing functionality that was previously out of reach to all but the largest and richest enterprise contact centers by making it easy to buy, easy to deploy, easy to add, change, and you can automate conversations for any channel with a very, very high success rate. This is going to reduce your labor requirements and simultaneously improve overall customer satisfaction scores. Now, one of the underlying pieces of technology that makes ICA so powerful is OpenAI. Kyle mentioned this earlier. Now, back in September, we heard about these guys and this revolutionary transcription and translation service they had called Whisper. We started testing it, we started challenging it, trying to figure out its scale right away. We compared it to the other industry leaders in the space, and we were blown away by how good this thing was. And then a couple months later, that same company, OpenAI, they unleashed another service that you've probably all heard of and likely all played with. It's called ChatGPT. So we've been working with them for about 6 months now, and we've decided to upgrade all of our existing speech analytics and transcription engine to leverage the OpenAI Whisper tool. And we've had speech analytics for years now, and it's about to get even better. But you know what? This is enough slideware for today. Let's actually take a look at this product in action. I'm going to steal the screen. If you want to stop sharing for a second, Josh, I'll take control and show off my desktop. Here we go. All right, so let's take a quick look at the speech analytics and transcription engine. So what you're looking at here is our call recordings that are within the contact center. You can make this available for contact center users. Frankly, you can make this available for all of your non-contact center users as well. That's one of the cool parts about having a single platform is we can bring the speech analytics downstream to your UC users. But when you're looking at call recordings, I'm assuming that probably most of you are familiar at least with the concept of call recording. Let's take it a step further and actually open up one of these recordings and look at some of the data that we can get. First thing you'll notice, we've got this little green smiley face right here. It's telling us that the average emotional score for this call is positive. If we find a negative call, it's going to use a little red frowny face. So we've got these cute little emoticons in there. But the sentiment analysis is pretty important, right? It's telling us, hey, did this call go generally well or generally poorly? And it's giving us an aggregate score. But if I open up the actual visualizer of the call, we've actually got spots throughout the transaction that might have been positive or negative. So I can find things that went well and went south in every single call. Stop for a minute and think about how powerful that's going to be if you're using this as a training tool, right? As opposed to listening to 10 random calls a month, why don't I listen to the 10 calls that have the lowest score or the highest score in terms of customer sentiment? It's going to help me focus in on what needs to be fixed. The next thing that we offer, if you look over here on the right-hand side of the screen, we've actually got a full transcript of the call. So as I scroll through, it kind of reads like a text message thread, right? We're recording the customer and the agent. I can read both of those things at the same time. At the top, we've got these hashtags. And I'm going to click on this hashtag right here for agent empathy. That actually jumps me to that spot in the call where the agent said, oh, I'm so sorry to hear that, right? Now, there's a lot of different ways that an agent could exhibit empathy. They could say, I'm sorry to hear that. Oh, that's terrible. I'm sorry for your loss, and so on and so forth, right? We could probably think of a dozen other ways to do it. Now, with this transcription, I can either search for the very specific keyword, right? I could search for any time that Kyle or Jeff say, I'm sorry to hear that. Or I could use all the different ways that I could say that I could exhibit empathetic behavior, and I could make that a topic. In this case, that topic is called agent empathy, and I could search for that topic. So I could search for the specifics or the general grouping. Where that starts to get really helpful, again, think about this from a coaching standpoint. Show me all the calls that Jeff made where he exhibited empathy, or where the customer had a problem and Jeff was able to solve it, or where the customer was really upset, right? Helps me focus in on what I'm trying to do. So how do we organize this stuff? Well, Glad you asked. What we're looking at here is the Content Analytics Center. This window is how I manage and change and tweak the different topics and keywords that I'm looking for. So what you see in the middle of the screen here is a heat map. The more common a certain phrase is, the bigger the bubble is. The less likely it is, the smaller the bubble is. And you can actually drill in because there's topics and subtopics and so on. The way that we organize this, over on the left-hand side, you'll see I've got all my different topics listed out. Let's jump into that customer experience topic. And as you can see, there's 27 topics that make up customer experience. The top one here is called agent confrontation. This is my hashtag that we described in the other on the other screen. There's 20 phrases that make up agent confrontation. Those are phrases like, I already told you that, calm down, that doesn't make sense. So anytime my agent says any one of these phrases, the hashtag agent confrontation gets associated with the call. Now, that's super helpful, again, when I'm trying to coach my agents or identify topics. When you buy speech analytics from 8x8, we're going to give you all of our generic out-of-the-box topics and subtopics. I think there's like 75 of them. So if you're a medical device manufacturer, I promise you, we do not already have your medical device names programmed into our system. But that's okay. It's super easy to edit and make changes. What I can do, in fact, let's look at agent confrontation again. There's 20 phrases right now. If we decided to get a little nasty and put our heads together, we could probably come up with a dozen other phrases to add on top of here. So all I need to do is come in here and add them, right? Type in the phrases that you want to search for and go. You can create additions to existing topics. You can create brand new topics. So going back to that medical device manufacturer analogy, you want to plug in your product names, go for it. We'll scan all your transactions and highlight anytime they mention a product name, or maybe you want to mention your competition or specific promotions you've run. So when you think about this from the standpoint of coaching and evaluating agents, I'm now got the ability to not just say, hey, show me 10 random calls from Jeff. I can say, show me 10 calls from Jeff from last week where he used confrontational language, or where the customer was trying to return a product and Jeff talked them out of it, or whatever the topic is that you want to do. Build a best practices library. Figure out who your best agents are and how they handle certain objections. But let's take this one step further than just your basic, hey, I'm trying to use this for coaching and training, right? It's really great for that, but let's go beyond that, right? Not everybody cares about agent coaching, although they should. Maybe you're in marketing. Maybe you're the head of sales. Would you like to know what your customers are saying about your product? Would you like to know what your customers are saying about your competition? If you're in charge of designing your product, would you like to hear feedback from your customers on how they could make it better? Would you like to know if you're missing opportunities to cross-sell or upsell? So depending on your role in the organization, there's a lot of value in speech analytics that goes beyond just, hey, I want to coach an agent or train an agent. Let's let the system identify transactions that are going really, really well. And let the system identify transactions that didn't go so great so we can make them better, right? The overarching theme with AI, if you remember from the top of the discussion, what Jeff and Kyle were both talking about, this is not designed to replace people. It's designed to make people more effective. And we know that people are less likely to leave when they're better at their job. The biggest single cost we have in any contact center is the cost of our employees, right? The cost of an agent. And one of the biggest challenges is agent attrition. A lot of times they leave because they feel like they're not getting coached. They feel like they're bad at their job. They're not hitting their metrics. Let's save you guys a tremendous amount of cost in terms of the employee experience by making training more effective for those agents. And then let's take it outside the contact center and let's find ways that we can add value, either by giving you access to voice of the customer on every single call, on highlighting ways that we can cross-sell or upsell more effectively, on identifying what the competition might be doing or challenges in the marketplace that we haven't identified yet, right? So there's a lot of power in speech analytics. I would encourage every single one of you, if you're not using speech analytics on your recorded calls today, I would absolutely encourage you to reach out to the team at Resourcive. Let's talk about how we can bring this to your doorstep in a matter of days and give you guys a really effective customer experience tool that's going to make your agents more effective. It's going to make your company more effective as well. So that's all that I wanted to share with today. I know we wanted to save some time for the end for Q&A. So I'll turn this back over to Josh, Jeff, and Kyle, and we'll answer any questions you guys have from the audience, whether they're in the chat room or whether they're live.
Cool. Thanks, Tony. And look, I mean, I think when we talk about the specific agent or supervisor experience, I think there's a lot of kind of potentially powerful things there. But where I get really excited is looking at it at scale. When you can really pull the strings on this stuff across an organization, we've seen some very, very impressive results come out, not just from like improvement of customer experience, but like the one Jeff mentioned around really driving a whole new product line into a business, and you're doing it accurately, right? It's one thing to kind of the traditional model may have been to do surveys to get your customer feedback. Look, I don't know about you guys, but like a lot of times by the end of a thing in a survey, I'm like, yeah, maybe, right? It doesn't necessarily accurately reflect exactly how my conversation went, right? So, it really takes this subjective feedback and makes it very objective, and then you can act on it. So, as far as Acer specifically, the business value and ROI case there was really driven out of a couple of things. One, call deflection. So a 30%, reduction in, call volume that we're having to go to agents. Because again, like the cost of this is not the technology. It is the agents. It is the labor force. It is the size of that contact center. That's where a lot of the ROI comes from when you start really like digging into the TCO modeling of solutions like this. Yes, like there is a cost of the technology component, but when you compare it to the cost of the labor component, like it's night and day difference. The next was improved workflow. So just increased efficiencies on the agent side, and also a standardization of interactions, right? When you're using technology, you can drive you can essentially use technology to drive adherence to a process versus, with your agents, you've got to go train and then you've got to manage against it. There was increased customer satisfaction there, and that was verified by CSAT scores. And it's just through the nature of meeting customers where they're wanting to be, and then increased visibility to the customer challenges. So one thing we didn't end up talking at, well, we talked some about it there at the end, but that data mining, right? And specifically on product feedback. So things like warranties or issue resolution, right? It allows you to start data mining and try to actually uncover the root cause. It's one thing to train your agents to handle a certain issue that comes up often. It's another to be able to mine the data, understand the issues, prioritize which of those are costing your business more, get that feedback back to product so that they can go and address the root cause. And then you're not talking about call deflection. You're talking about, trying to intercept this problem before it ever even comes to your agents. In a software environment, right? And you would do that in subsequent releases. In a hardware environment, maybe in your next versions. Where we've seen it matter most is organizations looking to enable and expand self-service. I think, and Tony, I know you had a slide that hit on it. I think there's been a lot of people who kind of, either from the consumer perspective or in their day jobs running contact centers, have tried to go down this road, and it hasn't really delivered the output that people necessarily wanted, outside of things like password resets or like some of this low-hanging fruit in self-service.
Mm-hmm.
What we are seeing is that AI and like being responsive and that additional layer of logic and reasoning that's coming out of this is actually enabling the self-service to become a reality. Also, like if a call center has large volumes with transactional disposition types. So one of the things we talked about is it's not to replace humans, it's to enable the humans that you have who are working on this to focus on highest value, highest complexity type items, right? So let's get those transactional things off of their desk, out of their queue, and get that into the technology where the technology thrives, right? In these transactional type exchanges. And then finally, organizations that are struggling to scale, I don't think I have to talk kind of too much about just the general kind of hiring environment. When I go into contact centers and I talk to them about hiring and managing for performance and the retention and turnover, this is a challenge. And, we primarily operate in private equity owned companies. They are all looking to grow and scale, right? They're not in the business of getting smaller. Looking at technology to assist in that versus having to, scale at the same ratios that they have done in the past as far as new growth and new business and growth of agents. That's where you can create some differentiation. So we've seen it be highly impactful. I do want to turn attention to, we had a question. So the question is essentially, can you explain the parity of some of the players in the market on CCaaS? So for instance, 8x8 versus Twilio Flex versus Avaya CCaaS. There's a lot of them out there. And it says which is most advanced in which categories. I mean, it's going to depend. Obviously, Tony would tell you 8x8. But I think there's a couple of things to take into consideration here as you look at their roadmap, because the reality is where they're at right now is not where they're going to be in 6 months or even a year. And so for us, a lot of times we begin that assessment by looking at where they have been from like their platform development. So there are still a lot of providers out there in the space that, I guess the way I would describe it and my feeling on it is they kind of rode their on-premise business too long. They didn't start with the research and development to get their platform where they needed to be to integrate things like these AI tools. So Tony talked about their strategy, but ultimately it's driven by being this microservices architecture. And there are other ones out there that are like that. We consider that like third generation of contact center, first being some of these legacy providers, which legacy providers, oftentimes sit in multiple categories depending on which product. But if we talk about Avaya, for instance, I think they're kind of known as a legacy contact center provider. They do have a CCaaS platform now, but if you look at when they took that to market, it was relatively recently and initially done via a white label partnership. It wasn't something that they had built on an architecture that allowed them to integrate these types of things. So as an overarching statement, the platforms we would consider third gen, which would even include somebody like a Genesis Pure Cloud, which is also in the legacy environment, but they now have a platform that's built in AWS. Talkdesk is kind of in that category as well. They are going to be able to innovate faster, and they're also just have a culture of being innovative companies. So there's kind of, as we evaluate it, we look at kind of the core infrastructure and how are they going to be able to innovate? Do they have key roadblocks or impediments to innovation? Do they have a culture that creates that? And then what is their approach? Which Tony talked a little bit about. 8x8's approach is one of partnership. There are other providers, kind of partnership and collaboration with the emerging players in the space. There are other providers that have done it via acquisition. I think about like Five9 acquired an AI company. Really, their initial focus was on speech recognition in the IVR. So being able to have a responsive IVR based on talking to it. That does take a provider and organization's capacity to focus on integrating into that area versus focusing on creating the infrastructure and environment to be able to partner with emerging tech. So kind of a couple of different ways. And the other one that you mentioned was Twilio Flex. I think obviously I think they would fit the infrastructure kind of component that I mentioned, and certainly would probably fit the culture. I think the challenge there is oftentimes you have to make a decision as an organization about, are you going to bring in the in-house expertise to build and create and manage this environment in the way that you really want to. So there's, I guess that introduces kind of a third category as far as like who is going to provide the expertise to see this come to fruition inside your environment. And I would consider like Twilio Flex as well as like AWS Connect. Those are platforms, but you inherently are going to have to do a lot of the building, in addition of modules within those environments. So I guess it's kind of a little bit of a quick take on it. Obviously a lot goes into this, right? I mean, our core process and what we do at Resourcive, we have a whole phase of our engagements that begins with deep diving on like what's actually happening in the contact center so that we can determine what's going to be of most value on the other side of it and then match that up to the vendor environments. But at a high level, as you look at how these CCaaS providers are playing in this space, from our perspective, it begins with an examination of their infrastructure. Because are they going to be able to keep up with the rate of change that's happening here? Some of them do have like key impediments to being able to do that. And like they know that they're working on it, right? But I think you want to from my perspective, that's where a lot of it starts at. Because if they don't have an infrastructure that's scalable and able to be integrated, they're going to struggle to deliver in partnering with you as a company and what you're trying to do. We do have a lot of other stuff out here. We talk about CCaaS a lot. There's a handful of other things, and then that we have available. And then our next one is a topic that has come up a lot. We go into a lot of organizations, and they're leaning into Teams for a variety of reasons around their voice services. And many of them are saying, well, like, I've got this CCaaS platform. Teams is not a viable CCaaS solution. How do I make these things work together? And so our next one on May 24th, we'll be deep diving into that. Josh, I'm gonna turn it over to you here.